Something very strange is happening behind the scenes with the Dallas Cowboys, and true fans can smell the smoke in the air. The most valuable franchise in the world, our eternal America's team, is playing a dangerous game of chess with one of its biggest stars. George Pickens, the guy who simply set the field ablaze last season with 93 receptions, 1,429 yards, and 9 touchdowns, is living under a contractual tightrope that no one can understand. How is it possible that our front office, led by Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, has simply frozen long-term negotiations with a 25-year-old talent who just became an All-Pro? A climate of mystery began to take over. The Stars complex when the player completely disappeared from volunteer activities, the famous OTAs. The fans began to panic. Are we about to see another holdout saga destroy the chemistry of our offense even before kickoff? If you look coldly at the current NFL market, receivers are breaking the bank week after week, receiving astronomical salaries. Meanwhile, Dallas stood firm and informed the athletes' agents that he would have to play the 2026 season, bound by the dreaded and cold structure of the franchise tag, earning a fixed amount of $27.3 million guaranteed. This smells fishy because it disrupts the athlete's future planning and creates an immediate short circuit in the relationship between the locker room and the front office. There's a clear disconnect. The player wants long-term financial security. The management wants to sweep the problem under the rug. Something is very wrong when your number 2 receiver needs to isolate himself from the team to send a silent message of dissatisfaction. Signs that this relationship was nearing its breaking point began to emerge publicly and uncomfortably for the coaching staff. The first major warning sign came in Corpus Christi during George Pickens' own youth football camp. Reporter Nick Harris did what any serious journalist would do. He traveled there and asked the million-dollar question directly to the player's face. "George, are you going to show up for the mandatory minicamp next Tuesday?" What followed was a spectacle of embarrassment. Instead of a firm answer, a proud yes, or a "I'm committed to Dallas," the player maintained a deathly silence, and his team of advisors immediately cut the interview short, forbidding questions about the NFL. If everything was fine, why hide the obvious? Why create unnecessary suspense in front of the cameras? But the signs didn't stop there. Last week, offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer made a statement at OTA press conferences that raised red flags among the most attentive analysts. He openly admitted that the team had no idea how much the receiver was running or training on his own. Schottenheimer tried to sugarcoat it by saying he trusted Pickens' professionalism, but the subtext was devastating. The coaching staff was completely in the dark, without any direct channel for physical monitoring with the athlete. When an American football team loses control of the whereabouts and physical conditioning of its main vertical weapon, the warning sign ceases to be a mere rumor and transforms into a silent crisis of mutual distrust. If the hints left you wondering, concrete evidence began to emerge from the biggest insiders in the American football market. Jane Slater of NFL Network and veteran Clarence Hill confirmed that George Pickens does indeed plan to be present at the mandatory minicamp this week. But make no mistake, fans, this appearance is not an act of love for the Lone Star or a sign of peace sealed between the parties. It's a purely financial and strategic decision. The biggest evidence of this forced truce was revealed by journalist Albert Breer, who exposed the NFL's aggressive penalty schedule for those who miss mandatory practices after signing the tag proposal. Since Pickens signed the official document in April, he is legally under contract and subject to the punitive rules of the league's collective bargaining agreement. The penalty for an absence would be brutal and escalating. Exactly $70,034 for the first day of absence, $35,168 for the second day, and another $53,801 for the third day. Adding it all up, George Pickens would have to shell out exactly $107,603 of his own money if he decided to boycott for 3 days in Frisco. No one in their right mind, much less an athlete advised by experienced agents, would choose to lose more than $100,000 just to be spiteful. He will show up because the rule has cornered him. His physical presence on the pitch at the Star is the ultimate proof that the board used the weight of the rulebook to bend the player's will, forcing his appearance based on the financial impact on his wallet. There's a crucial detail hidden in this story that almost no one in the mainstream media is paying attention to, and it involves quarterback Dak Prescott's behavior. In recent interviews, Dak has adopted an extremely protective stance when talking about Pickens' situation, and this statement hides a very clear damage management tactic. Prescott stated verbatim that even if the receiver were in the building, he wouldn't want to see him participating in high-intensity physical training. Dak stated that he prefers to see his teammate only talking with the new rookies like left tackle Tyler Guyton and getting back into the mental game with the playbook. At first glance, it sounds like the speech of a zealous leader, concerned about avoiding an early muscle injury, like a hamstring strain. But the stark truth is quite different. This exaggerated caution serves as a perfect smokescreen to mask the fact that George Pickens is not in ideal game conditioning because he boycotted all of the team's spring training. The coaching staff and the quarterback are giving the player an honorable exit in public cover. They are justifying his likely limited participation in training as a smart team choice, when in reality, it is a physical necessity stemming from the athlete's absence in the previous weeks. Dallas is desperately trying to avoid the label of locker room drama, creating a narrative of athletic preservation to hide the fact that its star deep receivers offseason was completely tumultuous and isolated from the rest of the main roster. To understand the real reason for this contractual standstill between the Dallas Cowboys and George Pickens, we need to look at the franchise's salary cap financial situation. Vice President Stephen Jones recently revealed the cold logic of the front office. Paying two wide receivers at the absolute top of the NFL market is a financial stress that very few teams can withstand and survive. With CeeDee Lamb demanding a historic contract and Dak Prescott commanding a massive payroll, the front office decided to use the 2026 season as a definitive testing ground for Pickens. Since he was acquired in 2025 via trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers for a third-round pick, the team understands that he still needs to prove maximum consistency before accepting a $150 million commitment. The player's agents tried to force a pay-us-or-trade-us situation behind the scenes before the draft, but they ran into a weak market. No other NFL franchise was willing to pay the double price demanded, giving up high draft picks in a trade with Dallas and simultaneously signing a long-term contract worth $35 million per year with the athlete. Without external offers and without real bargaining power to force a long-term holdout due to the heavy penalties, Pickens' camp understood that the only viable option at this moment was to adopt the good soldier stance. He'll swallow his pride, put on his helmet, step onto the field at the minicamp, and focus on destroying opponents in the 2026 season to put the board against the wall next year. The consequences of this strategic decision will resonate far beyond the AT&T Stadium field this season and could dictate the franchise's fate in 2027. The danger lies in the financial aspect and the market. July 15th is the absolute deadline for NFL players under the franchise tag to sign a long-term extension. If that date passes without an agreement, which the management itself has already indicated will happen, George Pickens' price will skyrocket. If he repeats last year's fantastic campaign and snags another All-Pro nomination under Brian Schottenheimer, he won't accept a penny less than $40 million annually in the next offseason. The wide receiver market inflates every cycle, and contracts with names like Drake London and Puka Nacua will serve as a basis for pushing values up. If Dallas finds it difficult to pay the top of the market now, imagine next year facing the cost of a second consecutive tag that would be prohibitive for our salary cap. We are rapidly heading towards a scenario identical to what the Minnesota Vikings experienced in the past, or even Pickens' own fate in Pittsburgh, an unsustainable situation where the player will demand to be the highest paid in the league, or will demand an immediate trade. The short-term impact is that we have a money-driven weapon in 2026, but the long-term price could be the definitive loss of generational talent due to a sheer lack of financial boldness in the present. All this investigation puts us at a dangerous crossroads that divides the opinions of fans worldwide. The Dallas Cowboys management is playing a high-stakes game by using the rulebook and contract penalties to force George Pickens to fall in line without giving him the security of a long-term contract. On the one hand, we protect the financial health of our salary cap to retain other important players on the roster. On the other, we run the real risk of souring the relationship with a young All-Pro and inflating his final price to a completely unaffordable level in 2027. Given all the evidence, the fines, and the strategic disappearance of volunteer activities, the question that remains for the Cowboys Nation to answer is this: is Jerry Jones being a business genius in protecting the team's finances, or Will this conservative stance cost us the loss of our most explosive receiving duo in decades next offseason? If you want to keep up with the developments of this explosive investigation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell so you don't miss any news bulletins straight from the Star, and share this video with your Cowboys fan community. The saga is far from over, and every practice starting Tuesday will dictate our fate on the road to the Super Bowl. To better understand the context of NFL contracts and financial transactions that influence the Dallas Cowboys management decisions, watch this explanatory video about the behind-the-scenes aspects of the contract, which details the immediate implications of signing the franchise tag and the team's future.